Hey guys, this is Ashton with Red Modeling Painting. Going to be doing a little bit more tonight, it looks like. I'm going to be working a little bit on Scott's Dark Legion, aka more purple painting. I don't know what it is with people in purple, man, but so far on these PaintCast tutorials, purple colored miniatures are all I have done. But I'm happy to do it. Purple is one of those colors that can be tricky to paint, so it's good to be teaching people how to do it. If you're watching live in chat, let me know if the music's too loud. I'll turn it down for you. As I mentioned, though, my ADHD gets pretty bad if I don't have something going on in the background. So. And do have a bit of a thunderstorm going through the area tonight, so if the internet kicks out a little bit, that's why. Hopefully we don't have too many problems. Just kind of getting myself situated here a little bit, guys, sorry. Alright, where we left off on Scott's mini last time was we had painted the skin purple. We had established the recipe for the blue that you see there on the head. And what we're gonna do tonight is I'm gonna work on establishing a nice consistent shadow along the edge of these armor plates and the skin. Same on that side, much like what I've done on the underside here. Okay, and then the protrusions on the skin, we do a little bit of work on the tail, that sort of thing. Detail work, essentially, at this point. So we'll start with P3 Thermod Black, and this is going to be 2 brush blended in. And focus the shadow along the armor plates. Now remember what we're going for here, Scott, is dark and menacing. So we want the delineation between the skin and these protective plates on his back to have a nice sharp relief between them. And that's why we're going with such a dark color, because we want it to pop out. On an area like this, where you've got a lot of really tiny detail in there, what you can do is just add a couple drops or a couple dots of paint like that. Load your brush up, plenty of moisture, and then you're just going to kind of create a wash almost out of the paint that's already on the surface and the moisture that's in the brush. And that'll just help get that into those detail places a little easier. Oh, looks like my chat window is off screen. Hold on a second here, guys. And there's my chat window. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we're set. Sorry about that. Okay, next we're going to move on to some coal black and just start picking out some of the details now. Some of the details of these smaller plates and horns that are kind of randomly placed on his body. Now, like on the underside right here, you know, these plates that are on his chest down here, there's already so much black and dark shadow down here that I'm really not doing anything more than just kind of dragging the brush along the edges, just to kind of pick up the highlights, if you will. And I tell you, it is immensely better having music playing in the background while I'm doing this. Just using the edge of the brush here to just kind of pick up some of these edges that the airbrush just missed a little bit. Again, I'm not being overly clean here because there's just so much raised detail that it just is really easy to just pick these details out by just running the edge of the brush over things. And these armor plates here that have already been base coated in the black, I'm just kind of essentially dry brushing, dragging the side of my brush with the coal black over these armor plates, because we're going to be building this up to look like, you know, what you see there. And this coal black is kind of the first step in that. Water this coal black down just a little bit. Add it to there. Okay, now these thorns or horns sticking out of the side. Again, I'm just dragging the brush along them. Don't get caught up with trying to paint each one individually. You got to remember, you got a whole army you got to paint here, so you're trying to get through stuff as reasonably as quick as you can while still making it look awesome, still making it look presentable. That's the goal here. The cool factor will kick in when you've got an entire army that looks this way and all sitting on the table at the same time. People are going to be blown away by it, because I actually think this army looks quite sharp, and if I ever had the desire to paint Legion, you may actually see this color scheme from me. Okay, so we're going to now take our lighter color blue. Alright, and for these, because these plates are so tight and so close together, I'm actually going to use a dry brush. I'm going to mix that lighter color blue with just a touch of the coal black, so we're not doing too big of a jump too fast. And the thing about, the P3 paints that I really like, Scott, is if you're gentle with them when you dry brush, you can actually make some pretty decent blends with them. They're good paint. And I'm not wiping my brush off all that much right now. I mean, it's still fairly wet, because I don't want to have a lot of texture to what I'm doing. I want the paint to stick, but I don't want it to look get that dry brush look that sometimes dry brushed paint gets. And again, you can see, this first highlight that we put on, very minimal. Can't hardly tell it's being put on, actually. Start slowly working up to some brighter color blue. See how that blue is starting to look there? Okay, now we want to get some of the frostbite. And where is it at? There it is. In this jump from the lighter color blue that you're using, lighter Signar blue, to this frostbite, you want to keep this one really soft, okay? You don't want to, really minimal. You don't want to have it be a big jump, because we still want to create this veiny, textured look in these plates, and if it's too big of a jump too quick, it's not going to look right. So my brush has got a really minimal amount of paint on it, and I'm just catching these armor plates. Okay, so now we can start working with creating these veins of color now, the streaking of color, the texture of color. The nice thing about this particular technique too, Scott, is you can get pretty heavy-handed with these, with this texturing, and it'll just increase the quality of the appearance of the effect. In other words, it's a fairly easy technique to do at this point. You are going to reach a point though where these plates are getting so close together and they're so tiny, that anything more than a light dry brushing is not going to do much. And you can see how that's starting to come together now pretty good. Remember, with these bright extreme highlights that we're doing here, keep them close to the edge. Keep the spacing between them a little further apart. This central ridge, though, I'm making sure to hit that so that that pops out. Come out just a little further on that. Looking pretty good. Happy with how that looks. Let's make sure to hit now some of these other spots. You'll notice, Scott, all I'm really doing right now is just kind of hitting these edges. Nothing fancy, just establishing that that texture pattern. So it stands out nicely. I actually think these small details that we're picking out right now are doing a lot for this overall color scheme. pick up a little bit more blue here. Now we've got on the underside here a lot of detail on the tail. Areas like this, really a good way to just to treat them is just with a nice wash. It really is the fastest way to move through it. So I'm going to make a little wash of coal black and sanguine base. So it's going to give us a nice dark purple. I'm just going to wash this on the underside of this tail here. And then once that dries, we can come back with the beaten purple and pick that up. So while that's drying, I'm going to start working on the base for you, because this guy's about done, man. Really not a lot more we need to do on this. So for the rock stone base, I'm going to start with Ashton Gray, P3 Ashton Gray. Someone's asking if the brush I'm detailing with is really stiff. That's this Scharf size 1 Kolinsky sable. It's not so stiff when you push on it. I mean, I'm giving it a very light push. You can see it. It's giving very easily. But the thing is, that's quality about it, and this is what you want to look for in a good sable brush, is when I push down and lift up, it has a pretty decent spring. It goes back to its original shape. This brush is getting a lot of use, and so that's why it doesn't go back immediately. It's starting to wear out a little bit, but that's what you're looking for, is a brush that springs back to its shape readily. That's a sign of a good brush. So it's not a very stiff brush. It's actually quite soft, but I'm using a very light hand with it as well. So back to the basing, Ashton Gray. So probably tomorrow night or the night after, Scott, is when I'm going to get on with your trooper here, your Legion trooper, and talk about how we're going to carry this paint scheme over to your trooper models. So that'll be cool. Just working a solid base coat now of the Ashton Gray. And here's the thing with painting stone like this. You want to try and work as quick as you can, Scott, because the shading and the highlighting on stone, I think, looks really good when you're doing it when the paint is still somewhat wet. Okay. And take some P3 Umbro Umber. And we're just going to blend this right into the wet surface here. I want to focus first mostly around the feet, creating a little bit of a shadow effect. helping the mini appear as if it's going to, or as if it's popping out of the base. Okay. And again, you're doing this while the Ashton gray is still wet. So you're literally wet blending right on the surface. The part of the trick to this is you don't want to let the brush get too loaded, so make sure and have a paper towel by or something that you can wipe the extra paint off with as you're moving around the model. And you'll notice this is a pretty quick way of painting too. It's hard on your brushes, so I would not recommend using a Klinsky Sable on this. In fact, I'm using some cheap Walmart brushes right now myself for this. Okay. And I want to get a little bit of Thalmar black going now. Don't need a lot of this, and again, you're going to keep wet blending it directly on the surface. This is just going to muddy up the color a little bit more. Just take it down a little darker. You could probably also use coal black too. Coal black is always a nice color to mix with umbral umber. In fact, I think I like that a little better. But the reason why I like doing stone this way, Scott, is because I think it creates a more natural look than dry brushing does. I think dry brushing stone just kind of creates a dry brushed stone effect, and I don't know, it's not natural looking, that's not real looking, and I like my stone to look nice. And the thing about the coal black too is that's actually going to create a little bit of harmony on the base because you're using coal black in the shading on the purple and whatnot. Again, the thing is though, you got to keep moving quick. You can't let the paint set up too much. And this style of painting also becomes a little intuitive actually as you're working around the base. And you end up creating kind of a nice natural marbling type effect too. And I mean, don't get me wrong on the dry brushing. There's going to be dry brushing on this when I'm done. That's how I'm going to pick out the highlights. But I don't know, just the whole thing doesn't need to be dry brushed. Okay. Now I want to get. Let's see here. Let's go with Troll Blood Highlight, P3 Troll Blood Highlight. And again, while everything is still wet, I'm going to start working some highlights now. And you're going to just wet blend these right in to the existing color that's already on the base. Remember, our start here was Ashton Gray. First shade was Umbral Umber, then a little bit of Coal Black added into it. Now we're adding a little bit of Troll Blood Highlight as the highlight color, and we're moving as quick as we can and doing all this blending and mixing directly on the surface. And again, when you keep seeing my brush disappear off camera, I'm wiping the excess paint off on a towel here. So that way I'm not just slopping things around, I'm actually somewhat controlling the paint. And you can see, I mean, how thrashed my brush is looking from doing this too. This is not an easy, this technique is not gentle on your brush. So again, don't be using a nice one for this. Alright. It's looking pretty good. Nice natural looking stone. Still contributes to the overall dark, menacing look that you wanted. I'm going to pull this off screen real quick and work it with my blow dryer for a second. Okay, that is dry enough for me now to take a dry brush, take some Troll Blood highlight. I'm going to add a drop of Frostbite to it, and I'm just going to lightly dry brush now the edges here, just to give things a little bit of a pop. Okay. And you know, you can just see I'm just lightly getting some of these edges, and I'm not by any means dry brushing the whole thing. I'm just kind of going back where that highlight was and just picking it up a little bit more. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do here, I'm going to use a little bit of Vallejo model color. Flat black. This is my go-to color for painting the rim of bases. It's dead flat, and it is fairly durable, holds up really well, and it's just what I do. It's my habit to use it, and I am a creature of habit, and I don't like to change, so I'm going to keep using it. And this should actually make things pop quite nicely too, because it'll get rid of this distracting white edge around the base. And I bring this black right up to the rock, because I've used these Rocky Bluff bases before. These are good bases. One of my favorite ones that Secret Weapon produces. Okay. Let me give this a quick dry with the blow dryer here. Alright, and there is one thing that we forgot. We forgot the mouth. Look at that. Nothing done in there. So I'm gonna do that real quick, but you can see the base is pretty much done. We're got a nice rocky looking, natural marbly look to it. Alright. And other than the mouth, he's ready to go. So let me just get that real quick. For the teeth, I'm going to use Menoth White highlight, and I'm going to use Army Painter Strong Tone, I have to be honest, painting the mouth of beasts is probably the thing I dread the most when it comes to painting miniatures. I have no idea why. I just hate doing it. I feel like it's one of those details that, I don't know, just after you've put so much work into the rest of the model, the last thing I want to do is just, oh damn, I gotta do those teeth. So I try to put as little work into them as possible, to be honest with you guys. What's the least amount of work I can do to get the most return? So even painters who love painting have their things that they hate. Yeah, eyes are another one. I've actually gotten pretty good at eyes over the years, but I still have a long way to go with them. But yeah, some of those guys that can like Jen Haley or Chris Surrey or Meg Maples or Matthew Fontaine, some of those guys that can do eyes really well and actually get the iris and the pupil in there and stuff. It amazes me. I've been able to achieve that a couple times, but it has to be the right mini for me. I can't just pick up any mini and do that. It's got to be a good quality cast for me to pull that off. And who knows, maybe it is with them, I wouldn't know. Someone in chat is asking if I'm using the paint right out of the bottle. Nope, I put it on a wet palette. There's a little bit of moisture on the wet palette it mixes with. So, I mean, well, yeah, essentially it probably is right out of the bottle, but I'm using a wet palette, not a dry palette. You can see here, there's my palette of color. Still working on trying to get a camera that streams my palette for you guys while I'm painting. It's proving to be a little more difficult than I thought. Now I'm going to take the Army Painter Strong Tone, and I'm really just washing the teeth at this point. Take some of the pop off of the teeth that doesn't make them look so white and clean and fresh and minty. And so that'll dry with a little bit of color on those teeth. And the other thing I want to do too is there's this little membrane right here on the side. I need to put some color on that. So I'm going to get the Murderous Magenta out. And we're just going to put a couple streaks of Murderous Magenta on that membrane. Just adding a little bit more to the skin here and there. Just building up some highlights that I think could use a little more color, a little more pop. Alright. Well, Scott, here is your rake. He is ready to go. All done. Looks pretty good. I gotta admit that that paint scheme's looking alright. I hope this is what you had in mind. So next time I'm on with you, which will probably be tomorrow night, actually, I'll be working on this guy here, and we're going to translate this paint scheme on your rake onto this guy here. Initially, what I'm thinking is the cape we're going to do in the blue. Okay. The armor we'll do in the purple, and the skin tone we're going to do in a probably a light blue, similar to what I did on Trevor's Scorn. Kind of a palish grayish color with a little bit of blue worked into it. I think that's what's going to work the best on these guys. So if I don't get to him, I need to get him primed and ready to go, or her rather. If I don't get to her to do by tomorrow night, Saturday's when I'll be putting this one up. But either way, we're almost done, and it's only going to be 1 or 2 sessions, two maybe 3 sessions with her. So this is almost done, and we'll be back to you here pretty soon. So let me know if you have any questions, Scott, and I hope this is coming out the way you wanted it. Otherwise, for the rest of you guys watching, feel free to contact me at redmodeling@gmail.com if you have any questions. I can answer them on air with you or via email, whichever you prefer. You can also hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/redmodelingpaint for all your questions, and even if you're wanting to get your own paint tutorial done with your own color scheme on your own miniature, let me know and we can work something out. Until next time, though, guys, thanks for watching, and have a good night. We'll see everyone later. Take care.